Welcome into another Warchant one-on-one. This is Ira Schoffel, managing editor of Warchant.com, and I'm joined today by Florida State offensive line coach Alex Atkins, who not all offensive line coaches are popular, but I think Coach Atkins is one of the more popular offensive line coaches in recent Florida State memory because his group obviously made a lot of improvement in the first season under Coach Norvell and that coaching staff. And I know it's what have you done for me lately in this business, but for right now, you should enjoy it because people are pretty excited about the growth last season. Sacks obviously were down, tackles for loss were down, rushing yardage was up, rushing yardage per carry was way up. So anyway, thanks for joining us today, Coach. And how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing really, really well, man. We had a good early morning workout, got the day started right, and I'm ready to roll.
What time's Coach Atkins' day start usually?
Well, Tuesdays and Thursdays we have a tour duty in the morning. It starts at 5:55 a.m. So my alarm goes off at 4:30. And then Coach take care of us a little bit on the other days. We got to be in at about 8. So my alarm goes off at about 6:45.
Nice. Man, you've been in Tallahassee now for about a year, over a year, but it's not been a normal year, obviously, for anybody. Mm-hmm. Have you had a chance to get out and see much of the city and talk to people and experience any part of I know as coaches, you guys move around a lot and sometimes you're not in a place too long. Have you gotten a chance to get a feel for Tallahassee in your first year?
Yeah, uniquely, Florida has been a place that has allowed some limited seating, and a lot of restaurants have been able to open and stay in business, which is always a blessing. So we've got to see quite a few places and get around a little bit and see the Car Museum. We've been to quite a few places that have really impressed us, and also the restriction in recruiting where we would have been gone a lot of the month of January, and coming up here in a little while, we've been able to stay here and enjoy Tallahassee, which has been fun.
You guys will start spring practice, I believe, on March 9th. And, I got to talk to Coach Storms a few weeks ago, and I asked him ignorantly, how excited is he about having a more normal off season after, last year you guys got cut short and had the quarantine and everything that happened. And he was quick to say, well, it's not normal yet. Is it still not normal? I think a lot of times as fans or media, we feel like, okay, they're going to get a spring, so it's back to normal now, but is it still not where it used to be or what we perceive to be normal?
We still continue to fight through the effects of the virus, which I don't know if we ever will go back to a complete normal of what we are used to and seeing. So we've had to adapt and improvise, but I do believe that normal or improvement has been us being around the players, where we were limited, where we couldn't be around them for a while. And as we learn more about the virus and how to function around it and through it and work through the problems of it, we've been able to gain better relationships with our players. And that's invaluable. We want to work them hard. We want to see the improvement on the field, but us being able to develop genuine relationships, I think, is more valuable than anything.
When you, as I mentioned at the beginning, your group did the offense showed improvement in a lot of different metrics that we look like, and whether that all should be attributed negatively or positively to the offensive line, that's kind of where we look. But when you finished your first season with this group, what were some of the things that you felt like, okay, at the end of the season, you felt like these are things I'm pleased with. These are things that I feel good about going into year two.
Well, it really had nothing to do with anything statistical or on the field, more as just the group coming together as an actual unit. We brought in some new bodies and some guys that hadn't been around each other, and to be able to get around each other genuinely and build genuine relationship with each other and get it where they're playing for each other and trusting each other. I'm so excited for that part of it. We like to say the offensive line is the only unit on the field. There's a lot of positions, but there's only one unit that has to work 5 and 5 together. So to build that bond on and off the field as we learn to work through the pandemic that's what I've been fired up the most. Those guys being able to get around each other as much as possible, which is mostly spent in the off season.
My first job my first full-time job was covering high schools in South Georgia, actually in Thomasville. Mm-hmm. And one of the first teams, the team I covered the most probably was Thomas County Central, which is Charlie Ward's alma mater. And they had a running back at the time named Johnny Cooksey, who ran for 2,000 yards in a season, was being recruited by a lot of people, had some academic issues. So he's not a name even though he should have been with his talent. But I remember talking to one of the offensive linemen on that team. I ran into him somewhere, and when I said to him, I was introducing him to somebody, he introduced himself as I block for Johnny Cooksey.
Mm-hmm.
And that always stuck with me. Like, he didn't say I'm the starting guard or I'm a starting offensive lineman. He's like, I block for Johnny Cooksey. Is that kind of the mindset offensive linemen have to have?
Exactly. And we have to have it for each other first. And the genuine happiness and joy to be truly happy for somebody else's success is the first thing that has to be established before we correct anything, because that comes with the position. So we have to grow that with each other first. I have to be genuinely happy when the guard on the other side has a good play, or if I'm not even on the field, but the tackle, we did something in individual drills and he showcased it in the game, and I remember the drill and how he transferred that over. There needs to be a genuine excitement for each other, and then that grows. Now I'm genuinely excited when I see Corbin break a run or make a catch or we protect, because those are the victories that you get in our position. There's genuine joy to see somebody else succeed. So you build it within the position first, and then it goes outward toward the team, and that's what I'm excited to build.
Because I've got daughters, and I was talking to my middle daughter the other day, and she doesn't really get football. She just sees it as, kind of barbaric, just guys kind of running into each other, and she was kind of, but I was trying to explain to her that of all the sports, I really feel like, and she played basketball into high school, and I tried to explain to her that, unlike basketball or baseball, really, I think football is unique, and a lot of people feel this way, that because you do have to have 11 guys really working together and 11 guys really committed to, they may not get their name called. You could have a basketball player take over a game, but you can't really have that to the same degree in football. Is that what you love about football? I mean, is that one of the things that you love most about football?
I'll give you the best example, or the best way I can present it is there's such a different – in the locker room, in the building, is so different from outside of the building. So, for example, if we have a player like Jordan Travis, who does spectacular, he will, outside of the building, he will be viewed different than he will be in the locker room and in the building, because in here, he's just Travis, and he's just a part of the team. So you build your culture and your team around genuine happiness and concern for everybody else. You have to build it up strong enough to maintain that, even though the outside views it differently. Whereas they say, man, Jordan Travis is doing phenomenal, and you kind of block that out, and you're like, well, no, he's like, no, I do that because everybody else is, able to contribute. And if you can build that first, but if you do not have that culture and that bond is built through genuine relationships with each other, you can get resentment. You can get where our locker room and our building operates as if they're on the outside and not going through the work as a team. So that's the first step in building the unit and the bond and the brotherhood with each other, where you almost laugh at the outside. You see that a lot in football. We're like, you all say that, but we don't say that in here. But you see those are the strong teams. You go back and look at every interview of championship teams, the teams who win a lot of football. It's almost like an argument with each other to see who is basically like, who's the leader. Like, no, I give all the credit to them. And that's what we're looking for.
When you look at, again, back to your group necessarily, but as a team, you said you were encouraged by some of the progress in that area in year one. What are some of the things about your group that, not necessarily specifically about individual guys, but like as a group, what's the next step on that path, on that journey?
But you have to have, it has to translate. I'm not wanting to shy away from that and say, oh, we're the best of friends and we're doing well and everybody's getting along, and you go out there and it doesn't translate on the field. So now it has to transition. The relationship and the bond with each other has to start to produce on the field, and has to show that that's what it is, and now you get to display your love for each other on the field. So it has to translate. I would love if that was the only thing we had to do was get them to be friends, but it has to translate where they're actually fighting for each other. And it's visual to see, like, these guys truly care for each other because they're landing on the line and they're giving that extra effort so their teammates can have that pride and have that celebration, and you see how genuine it is. And I think when you see it, you can recognize it, and it's hard to describe it.
When you played, you moved to the South. You grew up in Chicago, but you moved to the South to Tennessee when you were in high school, and played high school and college football in the South, and you basically coached in the South.
Yes, sir.
what did growing up, are you still a Chicago guy? Do you still feel like a Chicago guy when you go back home? Is that who you are, and what did growing up in Chicago do for you, good and bad?
The greatest thing that happened to me was living in different parts of the United States of America young, because I got to see the whys. Perception is so different. How you perceive things become your reality. So you cannot change a person's experience to judge their perception, but you can see why. So yes, Chicago is always going to be a part of me. You know what I mean? I grew up in Chicago, apartment building on top of a store. I walked to school every day. The snow didn't bother me. We didn't shut down or anything when we saw ice. It wasn't a big panic. We dressed for it and we went and attacked it. So I get a lot of that personality of I'm fine, which differs sometimes because it can make you sometimes unempathetic to the ones that didn't do it. So then I come here and I have to learn that's why they're like that, because they've never experienced it. But I also see why, they're more warm and friendly and more, when I came to the southern parts of the United States, it's offensive if you don't speak. Whereas like, hey, I spoke to you, like I really, want to speak to you. And in, Chicago, it's why are you speaking to me? There's an agenda. Like, we got a lot of other stuff to do. Why are you taking this time to speak to me? But I see why they're like that. I see the perception of why, because it was small towns and people stuck together and there's a sense of pride and Southern pride. So I do see the whys and the perception, which helps me in recruiting. I get to relate and I can talk to multiple prospects. And also it just awakens me to see the bigger picture instead of, the narrow sight of this is all I know, this is all I saw. I don't know why they do this. That's crazy. And I don't want to be like that. So hopefully I can help these young men be more broad, see the bigger picture, and see why people perceive the way they do.
I was going to ask you that. So when you bring in a kid from Miami, a Dante Lucas, and you bring in a kid from another part of the country, is part of your job helping them understand why different guys act the way they respond to different situations they do? Are you having to have those conversations constantly?
Absolutely. Because you judge your right and wrong off your own perception when it's not their right and wrong. Now there's an overall right and wrong based on your moral and religious belief, but let me tell you why he believed this. He's never seen this. He's never experienced this. So when you talk about what your experience is, let's just share each other's experiences, which brings us closer. Coach Norvell took our whole team up. We went up to the lake last year. And it was awesome because we got to sit around as a position group and we got to share our experience that got us where we were, even coaches included. And it was awakening for a lot of players like, man, I didn't know you went through that. I didn't know you perceived. I'll give you an example. I heard the best example is there's a person that might be scared of spoons. And you might think that's ridiculous, that you are scared of a spoon. But that person could have been hit by a spoon one time. And that's all they go back to that in their memory. So you're less empathetic and calling it silly when that's a real trauma that person went through and experienced. So it teaches you empathy and it learns you why. Now that I know that story about you, we're closer. You shared that personal experience. So now you're in a circle that don't make fun of you for that because we know you and we care for you. So when the outside makes fun, you have a group of people that protect you. And I think that's what we all want.
So you, going back to Chicago, I know you're younger than I am, but were you catching the tail end of Jordan and the Bulls when you were still there? Was that something you were aware of?
Man, the Chicago Bulls are very deeply loved in my family. The Bulls, the Bears, and the White Sox. We grew up on the South Side. There's no going away from that. There's no whoever's winning. No, man, we were deep rooted in the Bulls, Bears, and the White Sox. So I was the Jordan, the Big Herd. I mean, you can, even going back to Walter Payton all the way up to Devin Hester. I mean, there was no option. There was no negotiation. There was no other thing. You couldn't even bring up another team in our family. Not even in our, so it's not like no family rivalries or they grew up like, no, that didn't exist. We might have my uncle like the Pistons and he just couldn't come over.
So what's that like, man? Because again, I grew up in Miami. And so when I was a kid, Dan Marino was larger than life and they were doing what that passing game was doing. Revolution. Yeah, man, they were unbelievable. But the team never won. You know, they didn't win the Super Bowls. They weren't. What's unique to me about the Bulls was like you had the best player, you had maybe the best all time, you had the best coach, and the best team that was having the most success. Like, what did that do for the city? Like, what was the pride like as a kid during that time?
You get a lot of pride when you leave the city and you got on your Bulls gear on. You know, it gives you a sense of pride. I'm very similar to Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was times there where it was untouchable, where it was the same sense of pride we want to bring back. That's what it was for all Florida State fans. So when I see how passionate the fan base is because they remember that feeling of going somewhere with that jersey on and being able to talk bad about everybody. Y'all know who we are. You know what I am. You know what this is. So it's very similar to that, you know, of that feeling. Like, you know, you were from Miami when you got LeBron James and D Wade and Chris Bosh. Mm-hmm. This sense of pride when you wore that jersey, like, yeah, you know, if we don't win a championship, it's a bad year, you know, and you get to, you know, boast and you feel a part of it. You didn't shoot a shot and didn't commit to any team foundation funds, but you feel a part of it because that's your city. And it gives you a sense of pride, and it goes back to the feeling of belonging and protected and pride. We all look for that feeling.
Mm. Well, when you talk to former players from FSU that come back, alumni, you know, how do you talk is cheap? So I know you don't want to just sit there and say, "Oh, we're going to do this, or we're going to do that." What do you express to them about the direction of the program and what you guys are trying to do?
Give us the vision. They've seen it. You know, one of my worst fears as a coach is for a player to come to me and say, "You didn't push me hard enough." You know, I got to this point in my life, and I don't believe you prepared me for it. Or I got to go to the NFL, and you didn't show me what it was. You didn't tell me how it needed to be and what it looked like. So I think my message to former players is tell them what it looks like. Tell them how it feels. Give them the vision, because the vision of expectation only comes from somebody who's done it. Like, let me tell you how realistic it is, because if you've never done it, it's unrealistic to you. Like we can't do what y'all did. Like, no, that's not, and it limits you. So, you know, I hear people say about it all the time when they grow up in a family with nothing, and a 9-year-old walks in and says, "I'm going to own my own company." And that limitation of his parents is like, "No, you're not." You know, like, let's just make sure you get a job, and let's just, like, get a retirement and you made it. And people don't understand how that person has that vision. So my deal to the older guys or the alumni is to show us the vision, not us, the players. Connect with them and let me show you how it's done. Feel that sense of responsibility where whoever you connect with can never say you didn't tell them how it looked, show them how you couldn't show them the path. Because at least you did your part by saying this is what it looks like.
So your personal career, you have been mostly an offensive line coach, but you've also been an offensive coordinator, and you've helped coordinate, I guess, different parts of offenses. What was that something that you knew that was something you wanted to pursue from day one in coaching? Has football just made sense to you from a schematic standpoint, or is that something that you've kind of developed?
I love the strategy of the game, and to be honest with you, it started off when the early days of playing Madden. Like, I'm not going to be totally transparent. When I would play Madden and the O-line guy, everybody says, "Oh, you're just going to run the ball," because that's what O-line guys do. So I took it. I was in college, and I'm going to learn this pass game. And I'm going to learn about drives and angles and routes and coverages and things like that. So that's where the desire started from. And then when I started coaching, all I heard was O-line coaches can't be coordinators. That's the stereotype that gets thrown out there. They already had enough responsibility. And I was like, well, and then it becomes a challenge once again. Like, man, like, all right, I want to take on that challenge. So I had to challenge myself to go learn multiple parts of the game and the rules, and because a lot of coordinators, rules and regulations and how to manage the game too. So I challenged myself to learn that. And I give Willie Fritz a lot of credit because he allowed me to pursue those dreams, and he told me, we had a conversation. Said, "You want to do that? Show me you can know it." And then he gave me opportunity to first call a game. He allowed me to call a game. That was the first opportunity I had. So it was more of the challenge of what you can't do.
What was that like the first time? I mean, like, were you really?
It was fun, because just like that foundation had been built for trust, so your players are genuinely happy. Same way they're happy for each other. They're gonna like, Coach, we got you. We know how you feel about this, how you help me. Man, I'm gonna show up for you. And that's what changed my whole perception in coaching that moment when when I got named the interim coordinator, they're like, Coach, we got you. And then we go out, we score 42, we win the game. I'm like, oh, this is easy. Like, yeah, anybody can do this, but the reality of what it was, the players embraced and said, we're gonna fight for you, Coach. We're gonna make sure we do this for you. And so that was rewarding.
When we talked to you when you came in about a little over a year ago, you said one of the reasons you were attracted to this job was, not only Florida State, but also the opportunity to work with Coach Norvell and Coach Dillingham and this staff. And then I think when we talked to you in the preseason, you mentioned that, there's not, one of the things you've learned is that there's not really like a magic formula. It's about the work and it's about the preparation. After a year, what are some of the big takeaways from being on the staff?
You hit it right on the head. That's even stronger. My statement then is I believed it, but going through a year, I strongly believe it. We we talk about the outside versus the inside. The outside believes that coaches have a magic playbook. Oh, we get him, we're going to score 100 points because he's a great mind, and things like this. And there's some of that some coaches can put players in position, and we can see that, But getting them to believe in you and believe in the process. And when a player knows that you are genuinely trying to put them in the best position possible, you will see the change. Everybody will. Now, it'd be a credit to everything else in the outside world. It'd be, oh, man, they did this, they did that. You got to have that. Now, we understand that. But the reality of it is that they believe that you're wanting to put them in the best position possible. That's the magic of this game. That's the secret. That's the secret sauce, is putting the players in the best position possible, them believing that you're doing that, and them giving everything to you because they know you believe. They believe, if I do what coach is telling me to do, this is the best thing for me. Once that trust is built, it's fun. Because now you can make it seem like, yeah, we work those. I love cone. Coach Johnson always said, we think it's the cone drills, but, everybody doing the same drills. Everybody's doing the same program. This football is a pretty, copied. Everybody runs the same pretty much schedule. So what is the magicness? No, it's not the secret playbook that you clutch on the sideline. I'm looking for that book.
And then on the topic of player development, one thing, again, seeing my daughter come up playing sports and the lack of confidence that a lot of kids have. I think we see college athletes and professional athletes for sure and feel like, okay, but that they've got to have all the confidence in the world. Is that a constant battle, making sure the guys and I would imagine this generation with social media and everything else, it's got to be a challenge. Is that something that guys, even in college football, guys are 6'5", 300 pounds, still have to need help with sometimes?
Of course. There's a lot of I'm not going to just blame media. A lot of just attention in general has not separated professional athletes from collegiate athletes. We criticize them the same, but they're two different stages of their life. And you have a young man who my job is to protect and to grow and to develop, and everybody else's results. And my job is the process, and that's my job. That's what I'm paid to do. So I'm not going to complain about it, but the criticism is almost starting to be the same. The attention is really starting to be the same. And it used to be maybe for more like a couple of college athletes, the quarterback position. Now it's starting to become the left guard at a non-market school. Right. Just getting so everybody's fair game now. The same way a receiver who drops a ball for the Cowboys is the same way a receiver drops the ball at Florida State. And there are two different points in their life. So we have to rapidly prepare their confidence for that. And we have to instill that in them and challenge people around them to say, if you really care about these young men, it is what it is. You got to call out a spade. You drop it, you drop it. We can't act like you didn't, but understand you're talking to a person who still has to walk a college campus, that still hadn't properly developed the social skills to go out in the world and be effective. and know how to respond, we have to teach them that while they're in our care. And that's personal to me. So yes, it is it a task? It's possible. But that's why we're put in place, to be able to mentor to the student. And that's why I use the word student, because sometimes that's forgotten.
Right. That's one thing that, not to call out ESPN or Maria Taylor, but one of the things they do on game day is they have this segment called "You Have One Job," and it's basically they just highlight guys that messed up, that week, just glaring fumbles or silly running the wrong way, whatever it is. And I felt that way. Like, we're talking about college athletes here. I mean, it feels different when you're talking about NFL guys. It feels, and I'm not absolving myself of responsibility. I'm in the media, and we do plenty of it as well. But I can see how it's a big challenge.
You see every college coach say, "Blame me." The famous quote, "I'm a man." I can take it. I'm at a different point in my life. So if your line is bad, it's my fault. That's who it is. There's nobody else blame. It's on Coach Atkins. And that's what we're in place for. But as a coach not like that, then that's disappointment. That's on me. If he missed that, that's on me. Please tear me up.
Right.
I'm good with it, but let's try to protect our students.
Cool. I just want to hit with a couple of quick hitters before we go. So if you weren't watching football, which sports is it? I know all the Chicago sports. Well, the Chicago sports on the South Side, not the Cubs. But which sport do you like watching when you're not watching football?
Basketball. I enjoy watching basketball. Growing up in Chicago, that was the number one sport. My brother was a basketball player, and I enjoyed that the most. Basketball.
You got Patrick Williams, Florida State guy now with the Bulls. He's
big time. We're building. We're in that transitional stage right now. We're gonna get it.
And then TV, movies. Are you in fiction, nonfiction? What kind of stuff? I know you're a history buff.
Oh, yeah.
Away from entertainment, but what kind of things do you like to watch?
I love to read nonfiction. I like to watch nonfiction. I love documentaries. Like, that's the biggest thing in television that's grown bigger than ever is the docuseries. That they break down a series on Netflix, like a bunch of them, And so I enjoy those kind. Now I like comedy. I love the Martin Show. I can watch it. They ain't had a new episode in 20 years. I can watch it all over. I got the DVDs, and how many people still got DVD players? I still got the DVDs of them. I love that. And all the old sitcoms, Fresh Prince, Martin, all those things that come on, Cosby Show. I mean, any sitcom that comes on that I really enjoy. I love Friends, Seinfeld, throwbacks, Cheers, All in the Family, anything like all those things we grew up on. I enjoy the sitcom world.
Gotcha. All right, man. Well, listen, I appreciate your time again, Coach. I appreciate it, and good luck. I know you guys have been working hard. There is no off season, but spring football for the rest of us to get to watch some of the work and hear more about the work is coming in a couple of weeks. So I appreciate your time. Thanks again for joining me, Coach, and good luck this spring.
Thanks for having me.